Well guys, it's been a little over a month since I got my CZ Shadow 2 carry, and we finally hit 1,000 rounds. Before we get into this, I want to show you just how dirty this thing got. She is all nice and clean, but boy was she dirty. I completely neglected her, full 1,000 rounds, didn't get a single cleaning. Want to see would that induce any issues or malfunctions, but hey, let's get into it. So to give you guys a close-up, this is how dirty a gun gets after 1,000 rounds. I would say this is borderline abuse to go 1,000 rounds without cleaning it. But this was strictly done for this review. I wanted to see how reliable this was if I never cleaned it. And it is honestly, it's disgusting. So this will definitely be getting broken down and getting a good clean and lube following this video. So we're gonna start this review off with a couple disclosures. And yes, YouTube, this is safe. No magazine here, no bullets loaded. Full disclosure, this gun was not sent to me by CZ. This is actually a gun that was a present for my 40th. Couldn't figure out what I wanted for my birthday and decided, hey, why not get a nice gun? And yeah, at the end I will tell you, do I think it was worth it? And if so, who would I suggest this gun to based on how it shoots and the functions that it has? So most importantly, I want to talk about reliability. So I did this 1,000 rounds over 4 different trips to the range. And if you follow my shorts, you'll see I broke it down by every single different brand, grain weight, and all that. So I was perfectly reliable for the first 800 rounds. When I most recently went to the range to do the last 200, I finally had an issue. Now, I personally don't think that's the gun as much as I think it was the ammo I used. And I will include pictures of that ammo for you guys to see. It was my first time ever using the Remington 147 grain. And you'll see in these pictures, the bullet face of it is kind of like stubby. It's not like a traditional round FMJ. And I think that was what was causing the failure to feed. It did happen 6 times over those 100 rounds. And at first I wasn't sure. Was it actually the gun? Was it the bullets? At this point, I had shot this gun for 800 rounds without lubricating it, without cleaning it, just literally taken it out of the box and taken it to the range 3 other times. So I will say after that 100, it then shot 100 rounds of 124 grain Federal, no issues at all, which is what leads me to believe that those 6 issues were directly related to that ammo type. So I can't say whether or not if I had cleaned and lubed the gun previously, would that not have had a malfunction? Hard to say. I would just say if you're gonna get this gun, avoid that ammo, because it was the only one that gave me any sort of hiccup. Next, we're gonna talk about accuracy. So for me personally, this is probably the most accurate handgun I've ever shot. And I can't say ever shot. I've shot an XC, which is pretty damn accurate, that I own. We'll go with that. So definitely the most accurate gun that I own. And I will say this is more accurate as a firearm than I am as a shooter. I can humbly tell you that. When I do my part, this thing was making ridiculous small groups at 15, 20 yards, no problem. And that's amongst all the different ammo I tried, even the 147 grain. It was just, when I did what I had to do, got the great grip and actually focus on putting the target exactly where I wanted it, it was no questions asked. This thing actually gave me more confidence as a shooter than my previous guns that I've shot. So I will say that is definitely a tremendous perk of the CZ Shadow 2. And that's not surprising because, you know, we're coming from what is originally a competition gun, or a gun that a lot of people use in competition for the full 5-inch variant of this. So I definitely expected it to be accurate, but to actually see that happen and to see the result on paper, it was nice. It definitely boosted my confidence and makes me like the thought of carrying this even more. So next thing we will talk about is going to be the recoil impulse of this. So I will say it is a heavier gun, and the weight of this definitely helps reduce some of that recoil. Now, I will put some video footage in here. It looks like it doesn't recoil much, but it definitely has a slight jump to it. It's not a bad jump. In fact, it returns to zero surprisingly well. Also, probably of all the guns I own, returns to zero the best, and I really like that about it. So I will say, if you want something that's going to be less snappy compared to most of your polymer striker fire handguns out there, this definitely is a contender. Next, we are going to talk about the overall weight about this, because I know the one thing people are going to gripe about is if you were to carry this, how would the weight affect that for you? So me personally, as you guys have seen in my videos, I'm a big believer in off-body carry. I have back issues. Sometimes it's not the most comfortable for me to carry down in the belt, so I don't find this to be an issue. I did buy a holster that I'm going to review that's specifically for on-body carry, and I will let you know, does the weight of this bother me for that? That will probably come out a couple weeks after this, because obviously I got to use it and test it and give you guys real feedback, because I don't want to just go ahead and assume. But the weight for me is not a problem. Could I see the weight being a problem for some? Possibly. This is definitely, considering this is the size of a Glock 19, significantly heavier feeling. I think it's about 8 or 10 ounces, so definitely enough to notice. But again, going back to the recoil impulse, that weight helps when you're shooting it. When you're shooting this gun, you don't feel the weight of it. Now, just holding it in a hand like this, yeah, it feels heavy. But when I'm actually shooting this gun, it does not feel heavy. It does not feel clunky. I like it a lot in the sense that it seems to be a good overall, could be duty, carry, bedside, anything you would want. I feel like this could really do with this weight. So I understand that that topic could be pretty objective depending on what you prefer. So I'm not going to beat down that too much about the weight, because obviously we all have different opinions on what we would or wouldn't carry. So next, we're going to talk about the trigger. I do want to just take a moment and show you guys how the trigger pull feels both on double action, single action, and the reset, because I think that is definitely some noteworthy about this gun, especially if you're comparing this directly to the CZ Shadow 2 Compact, which has a manual safety and not a decocker, because the triggers, from what I'm told, because I don't have one or shot one, are quite different. All right, so let's talk about the trigger pull. So right here, we already are in single. Very little take up, defined wall, and pull a little bit of creep. Very clean, crisp. I have no issues with that. Now this is decocked, so this would be double action. A whole lot more take up there. And when you start to pull, you can tell that is significantly heavier. Now for me personally, I think that makes that a better carry option, because you're gonna carry with this decocked, and that feels a lot safer. You're definitely gonna feel that. If you're going into a holster, there's no way you're gonna just shove through that. That weight is significant, and I think it is better than a striker fire. But again, that's my opinion. Everyone is entitled to their own, whatever you guys prefer carrying. Lastly, let's talk about the reset. I personally think this is a little bit long. Perfectly adequate, but for how good the trigger is otherwise, I would have liked to see that reset a little bit shorter. So as far as the trigger on this, I will say the one thing I've noticed, and everyone that I let shoot this notice, is that this thing in single action is so smooth and so light. Double action is definitely heavy. Now, to me, there's pros and cons to that. If I'm carrying this, you're gonna obviously have it decocked, and that trigger pull is gonna be quite heavy. I don't recall what it specifically is. I think it's in the neighborhood of 10 plus pounds. So if you were gonna reholster this, that's where, to me, something like this is safer as a carry than your traditional striker fire that has, say, a 5 or 7 pound. Because God forbid shirt or something else gets caught up in that trigger guard, you don't want to have an accidental discharge. So peace of mind, I personally prefer this with that, especially having the option to decock it. But again, the single action in this is phenomenal. I will say the reset is a little bit long. It's longer than what I would like. And in fact, I've noticed for me trying to shoot this thing fast, that longer reset kind of hinders me a little bit. Now, again, I'm not the greatest shooter out there. I'm sure other people may not have a problem with it, but it's definitely something worth mentioning. And I think if you're gonna potentially buy this, you should know that going, because it's not cheap. So next, let's talk about these grips. I will say, they are beautiful. And when I first held a compact to decide whether or not I was gonna order this gun, I put my hands on that and I instantly thought, this is gonna be perfect. Size-wise, and I'm gonna include a video in here to compare, it almost looks identical to a Glock 19 as well as my macro. But the one big difference is because you have this enlarged trigger guard that would work great for someone who has to wear gloves or shoot outside, it does force your hands down. Now, I'll do a close-up so you can see exactly what I'm talking about, but for me personally, that makes my pinky not be able to sit on there. And I will say the texture of this, while it looks amazing, I constantly find myself re-gripping. So, again, this is definitely something that is going to be opinionated. For you guys, comparison's sake, I wear a size large mechanics glove, so this could just be my hands. So take this with a grain of salt. Hold it yourself before making the purchase. But that would be one thing that in the 1,000 rounds I found to be an issue. So let's check out this video real quick. You can see the comparison, you see where my hands sit, and then I'll explain a little bit more. So let's talk about the grip of the CZ. As you can see on here, my pinky hangs over just a little bit, which is surprising because this is the same size as a Glock 19 and almost the same size as my macro. For comparison, I want to show you what it looks like on my macro. See, my pinky almost can completely stay up on the mag well. Very similar size. Also very similar thickness. Now with the Glock 19, obviously thicker grip, pinky hangs off as well for that. So one thing I noticed myself having to redo is when I go to get on an aim, sometimes I'll have to readjust my grip. Now, at first I thought because how thin this grip was that would work, but I think that does not leave me enough room to get my support hand, and that is what is causing me those issues. Now, full disclosure, I have already ordered some replacement grips from Lock Grips, and I will be swapping them out after this video. I did not want to change them before completing my 1,000 rounds. I wanted to give you guys a true raw feedback of how this gun shoots exactly as I have configured without changing anything else to it besides adding an optic and a light. So I will have a future video coming up. I'll let you know how those grips affect this, if they help my issue or if they're not really worth it. But I just want you guys to be aware that for some people, especially if you have smaller hands, this might be the perfect grip. The thickness is very nice, but for me, I will say it ended up being a bit of a negative. I still could shoot accurately, but I would notice on those longer range trips, I find myself towards the end just re-gripping and adjusting my grip more often. And that's what I will have to say I attribute that to. One thing I do think is worth mentioning is throughout the 1,000 rounds, I used 8 different magazines. I will show you guys up close exactly what I'm talking about, but there was the 2 magazines that came with the gun. Then I ordered 4 magazines from Mekar, and I then ordered an additional 2 CZ magazines. What was strange to me was not only did the CZ mags wear dramatically quicker, and you'll see in the video that it's night and day, that all those mags almost have the same amount of reloads through them. So it was a little weird to see how quickly the CZ mag started to wear. Aside from that though, what was more concerning to me was with the CZ mags, when I go to reload, sometimes, not always, it would automatically rack the slide and chamber the round, which to me, I personally like. I'm used to that in my macro, and I know some people prefer guns that don't do that, but sometimes it wouldn't. And the inconsistency of that bothered me. And the reason I'm saying I believe it's the magazines is because the Mekar mags, every single time I reloaded, it re-racked a slide for me, chambering the round without fail. So something to keep in mind if you're going to get this gun, depending on what you think of that. Do you want it to re-rack the slide for you, or would you rather hit the release? I can see pros and cons to both sides, so I'm not going to really say whether or not that's a positive or negative, but it's definitely something you guys can take and use at your own discretion. So I do think it's worth mentioning that the CZ mags, I'm going to try to get this so it captures it, they wear exceptionally quick in my opinion. And I'm going to use a comparison. So this mag here, I did about 100 rounds. This mag here, another 100 rounds. These are the mags that originally came with it, about 200 rounds through this. This one also, about 200 rounds. And then comparing that to the Mekar mags, which had about 100 each. I have 4 of these. You can tell there's almost no wear on these Mekar mags. They still look brand new. These were the first mags I went shooting with. So, not that that affects how the pistol is used, but I thought it was very strange that the CZ mags, which are not cheap, wear exceptionally worse than an aftermarket. Usually that's not the case in my opinion, but you can tell. I mean, these things, I just had one range trip with these 2 right here, and they look almost in worse shape than, let's compare it to, like here's a really old mag that I have for SIG. You can tell this is definitely taking a beating, and I have hundreds and hundreds of rounds for this. You can tell that looks pretty worn. But again, already getting pretty worn compared to the Mekar, which still almost looks brand new. So just thought I'd add that in there. So next I want to talk about the breakdown of this. I will say this is only the second CZ I've ever broken down, but I will give it props for being extremely user-friendly. Very simple to break down, very easy to clean. So that, for me, was definitely a bonus. I want to show you guys what it looked like inside after those 1,000 rounds. I'm pleasantly surprised that it still looks brand new. I mean, I cleaned it right before this video because obviously it was disgusting, but you'll see it looked incredible inside. I didn't know what to expect really after 1,000 rounds, because this is the first time that I've personally taken a gun, intentionally shot a set amount of rounds, and then critically evaluated it. So I will say thank you, YouTube. I do appreciate this process because it gave me a more critical eye, not only in using the firearm, but what to expect and how I'm going to do these videos for you guys. So let's take a look at that, and we'll get on to my final thoughts. All right, guys, so just gave this a quick clean. See how close up I can get. I will say after 1,000 rounds, doesn't really look like there's much wear at all. There's some here and there, but still looks nice and new to me. Sorry, it's still a little shiny, didn't wipe everything down, but before I put it back together, I wanted to capture this. I mean, there's a little bit of wear in there, but overall, I really gotta say, she still looks pretty new, cleaned up quite nice. And I will say, taking it apart was very, very simple. And I will say, to answer the question in the thumbnail, yes, this will be my new carry. I'm extremely pleased with this as a firearm. I love the accuracy. I love the reliability. I'm not gonna hold those 6 issues with that one ammo type against this. I really believe it was that ammo, and the reliability of this has been phenomenal. I definitely think this gun is worth the money, especially for someone who wants something a little bit nicer. There's something nice about having a full metal gun. I think the feel of it just feels premium. The shootability is outstanding. And honestly, I really don't have many true negatives. In everything we just discussed, that was just my feedback, but none of it makes me negatively look back on this and think that it's a bad firearm. Is it a little bit more expensive? Sure. But there's definitely things that are way, way more expensive than this that I have shot that don't shoot as well as this. So for me, this was a no-brainer. I do plan on swapping out the grips. I'll let you guys know how that works, see if that changes anything for me, if it fixes the one issue I seem to, can't really say I have with it, but the only gripe that I have with it. But yeah, this has been a really fun process. And I thank you guys for actually being there to check this out, because again, I've bought so many firearms before and I've never sat there and actually taken the time to feel the trigger the way I have in this, to really push the gun, to see accuracy, to change out the ammo. This has been a really fun process, and I want to thank you guys for that. Now, what I will say is I do have another firearm coming. Originally, I planned on this being the only firearm this year, but I enjoyed this so much I actually went ahead and ordered another one. So please stay tuned and check that out coming forward. I think you guys will be pleasantly surprised what I was able to order. And when it gets here, you guys will definitely be the first ones to see it. But if there's something that you guys have that you think I might like, or you guys are curious about, let me know. I'm definitely open to checking out different firearms, and if it's gonna get me time in the range and get me time being more proficient with a handgun, I'm all for it. And then I can give you guys an honest review. So please, in the comments below, tell me, what do you guys think I should check out next or down the road? What are some things you guys are curious about? And if I miss something in this review, feel free, ask me. I will let you know my honest feedback. I definitely value what you guys ask, and I do my best to get back to you as quickly as I can. So, like I said earlier, guys, I really appreciated this journey. This is going to be a fun carry gun. I'm sure this is not the last you will hear about this, but thank you and stay tuned.